This episode of the New Medical Nomads podcast is brought to you by Nomadicare. Now, personally, I love Nomadicare. I've used Nomadicare, and I recommend the company to all new travelers. What Nomadicare does is it takes the fear out of getting set up with a bad recruiter, which is the biggest fear that you have jumping into this journey. So they sit down, they interview recruiters, they vet them, get them on a list, and then provide them to you as a free service, as a free recruiter matchmaking service in order to get you started on your journey. Now, usually you only get 2 recruiters going through Nomadicare, but being a listener of the show, you can get 3. So this is how it's going to work. You go to nomadicare.com/Dylan. You will get set up with 3 recruiters to be on your dream team, as well as a guide to get you started on your journey.
The second sponsor of the show is TravCon, the Travelers Conference. I'm super excited to announce them as a sponsor of the show. TravCon was there for me before I got started as a medical nomad, and now I'm actually involved with the planning of the event. So super aligned, super congruent. I've been promoting them before they were even a sponsor, and so I'm excited to have them on. So there are 3 main reasons that you should go to TravCon this year. Number 1, value. This is the cheapest conference to go to as a medical professional, and also the only place that I've ever felt like royalty when you're walking in and all these staffing agencies and all these recruiters want to talk to you, and you're bumping elbows with these travelers and they're interested about your story, about where you're coming from and what you're doing. And it's overall just a really good feel-good event. Number 2 is education and growth. So this conference was founded on the realization that there's a lot to know to be a medical traveler, to be a medical nomad. And so this is where you go to get the most updated tax information. This is where you go for those really niche specific questions on what's it like to travel in an RV and what's it like to travel to Hawaii. And then 3rd, community. This is where a lot of my traveler friends that are very near and dear to my heart right now, this is where we met. So this is where the relationship sparked. It's also one of the only places that you get to go to and see the leaders and meet the leaders of the industry, both on the staffing agency side and on the traveler side, and also get to meet your recruiters face-to-face that you've been working with. So TravCon is always in September every year. TravCon is also always in Las Vegas. The link is going to be in the show notes for you to get your ticket. I'll be at TravCon. All my friends will be at TravCon. I hope to see you there.
Hey Nomads, this is Dylan coming at you from Western Colorado. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the New Medical Nomads podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Dylan Callier. We are in the middle of the series of learning how to negotiate, finding out that you need to negotiate while you're in the traveling business, while you're in your traveling career, and also how to do it successfully. Not just for one successful contract, but for a successful traveling career throughout its entirety. We are going to be talking about playing sleazeball, something that I was told to do when I first came onto the scene, and have really gotten to see how that impacts a traveler's success and how that impacts a traveler's relationships moving forward with traveling. But I just sat down, came back from treating patients today in home health, and it's just a fantastic drive out here every day to my patients' homes. Sat down, made some coffee, so I'll be sipping on that. And I never realize how noisy a place is until I sit down to record. So I got a loud refrigerator running in the back. I got cars zipping by. My editor Kat's gonna have it cut out for her for today for sure. Oh, there goes a car. All right, but today we're talking about playing sleazeball. So what is playing sleazeball as a traveler? So as a traveler, in order for you to have a successful career, you need to work with multiple companies. Different recruiters, different companies, you need to work with multiple. I recommend 3. Any more than that, typically start dropping the ball with communication, and that can also impact the relationship as well. Any less than that, you're probably kind of limiting yourself to how wide of a net you can cast for those opportunities. Whether it be location or competitive pay packages, things like that. And most travelers for a long time have worked with multiple companies. That's just kind of how it's always been. And a lot of times when you're in the groups, you're in the Facebook groups, you're reading up on it, you're getting ready to dive in for that first contract, or you got into your first contract and now you're meeting all these other travelers through TravCon. you hear about travelers getting taken advantage of, and it makes you want to, just be really aggressive with these negotiations so that you for sure are coming out on top. And so when a traveler would work at a hospital and meet another traveler and find out that that traveler is making more, it really makes it sour for them. It really hinders that experience. And I can definitely see how they get a chip on their shoulder to where they don't want it to happen again. And so out of this type of feelings towards the industry and how it works, and towards the topic of money, they come out and they say, okay, so now anytime that I come across a job, I'm going to check with all my recruiters who will give me the best pay package. That in itself is not too bad. What is bad is when a traveler says, okay, recruiter A, I see that you are offering me this amount. Maybe it's $2,000 take home per week. Is there anything you can do more? And they say no. So then that traveler says, okay, recruiter B, my recruiter A is offering me $2,000 take home a week. What can you do? And then recruiter B comes towards us. Oh, I can do $2,000 take home a week, and plus I'll give you an additional $100 a week. And then that traveler will take that from recruiter B, go back to recruiter A and be like, hey, recruiter A, this is what recruiter B has given me. What are you willing to give? And then recruiter A will either increase in order to try and beat out that other recruiter, or won't be able to go any higher. And so this is kind of the back and forth that will go between the traveler and multiple recruiters. And that's kind of why I call it sleazeball, because it's going back and forth, it's lobbing over the net, back and forth until you finally, get the highest number. You can't go any higher. So what that is going to inherently lead to is a relationship where the recruiter knows that any job that they give you and approach you, you're going to be checking with another recruiter. If it is a job that they share, if it is a VIP job, if it is a VIP job, they're probably not going to let you know that they have a VIP job for you, because if you are taking that facility's name and going to competition, that competition might call that facility and try and work a deal out with them directly. Hospitals are the harder to get clients in this industry versus travelers. So if they know that you're blatantly going back and forth with recruiters, they're probably not going to share that information with you with those VIP hospitals that are kind of exclusive to them, but not really, not contractually, but something that they feel like they really have a hold on and that is kind of theirs. And so it's kind of a golden nugget that they want to keep to themselves and keep quiet about, so that all these other 200 plus staffing agencies don't find out about it and start calling this hospital up, trying to win their business. So if they know that you're going to be bouncing back and forth, it doesn't really reward them for working really fast with you. So if they were the ones that said, hey, I know you are looking forward to Alaska. We've had the conversations. It's been over an hour. I know you are dreaming set on Alaska, and I have this job. Here it is. Do you want to submit? If you go back to that other recruiter, you kind of just stole their thunder. They did the hustle. They found the job. They thought of you. They brought it to you. Where was recruiter B when you were looking for that job? Oh, they just so happen to have access to that job as well. Why weren't they texting you when that job popped up? So recruiter A should get rewarded for that, and that's how they feel. It's very, it's not in good faith, especially if you are going back and forth multiple times. So you get the offer from recruiter A, you go to recruiter B, you come back to recruiter A, you take that one, you go back to recruiter B, and you're kind of lopping back and forth. That is going to lead to bad blood between you and that recruiter. And it's not going to last very long. That relationship is not going to last very long. They might still work with you, but they are not going to give you the VIP locations. They're not going to hustle as hard for you because you're not rewarding them for being fast. You're only rewarding the person who's able to take the smallest cut for themselves. Sometimes it's for the recruiter, sometimes it's not for the recruiter, as in the incentives for them to, have a certain percentage of gross profit margins. But either way, that is going to lead to a bad relationship. When you have a bad relationship, that next contract's not going to go so hot. you're not going to set yourself up for success to get those VIP assignments if you keep burning a recruiter and keep burning recruiters after another. And you can move on to the next company, but you just lost out on that other company, all the contracts and contacts that they have with the hospitals. So the industry itself is so based on relationships, and playing the sleazeball back and forth game just is not going to set you up for success. You can be the Serena Williams of sleazeball. You can be the Robert Federer of sleazeball, going back and forth, but you're not going to have a successful career as a traveler. You might have a successful contract doing that once. Maybe it'll work twice, maybe. But doing it multiple times, it's not going to set you up for success. And you're going to have to move to a different company. If you're working with these companies, some of these larger companies that have a lot of exclusive jobs, you're not going to have access to those anymore. And this community is very tight knit. It's very small, not only on the traveler side, but also on the recruiter side. They know each other. If you do that to one recruiter inside of an agency and you try to go to another recruiter inside of that same staffing company, they're going to talk. They have, just like patient notes, they have notes of, hey, we had this conversation. They took this job, went directly to another recruiter, came back, said that my offer wasn't high enough, not a good traveler. So they're going to have that conversation. Might not be blacklisted for it. That would be if you submitted to the job and then backed out of it. That could lead to a blacklist. Blacklisting meaning that that company will no longer work with you. But you're not going to have a good relationship, and it's not going to be in your favor when you go down the road. Now, that's not to say that you can't approach other recruiters or have that conversation of, hey, what is your best offer for this job? You have to be careful with approaching other recruiters about jobs. Usually that's really frowned upon. That first recruiter was the one that gave you, that information, and you want to submit fast. So if it sounds good, go ahead and submit. But in conversation, a lot of times what happens is I will be talking with my recruiters and say, hey, by the way, I got submitted to a job today. They'll say like, oh, where? And in passing, oh, it's over here in Western Colorado. This is the hospital. And they're like, oh, what is it this facility? And they're like, yeah. Or I say, yes, it's that facility. And they say, well, what are they offering you? And I never say what the offer is. I always just say, oh, well, I didn't realize you had the job too. What would be your best offer? I wouldn't back out of a submission, but this would be a very good way of being able to see how fair that the recruiter A was paying you. Many times these jobs also come in at the same time. Say, it's Monday morning, you're coming back from the weekend, you get an email from one recruiter, you get a text from another recruiter. Now you have an offer for the same exact job with two different staffing agencies. So how do you work that out? So you go back to each recruiter and you say, all right, multiple agencies have this connection. I don't like to play the back and forth game. It doesn't feel right to me. It's a waste of time, and I don't want to waste your time. What is the best offer you can make for me for this job? And you say that to each recruiter, and you don't tell them what the other recruiter is offering you until they've made their offer. If recruiter A comes back with $2,000 take home a week, and you want to make sure you can compare these apples to apples, right? Have it all broken down. Make sure insurance is coming out if you're taking insurance. If you want a full pay breakdown so that you can look at each individual piece, add it all together, and make sure which one actually comes out comparable. So recruiter A says, I can do $2,000 a week take home. Recruiter B says, I can do $2,100 take home. You can go with recruiter B. And you say, great, I would like to submit through you. At that point, I will usually tell the recruiters kind of what the other offer was. And if they try to raise their offer, that is going to be a sign that they didn't actually give you the best offer that they could. So in that case, that becomes a conversation of, hey, no, that's not what the rules were. And now I'm starting to guess or wonder why you didn't offer this amount up front. And so be very curious about it. Have an open conversation. You don't want to be accusatory. But that is generally how I handle those situations. Now, if you are submitted with a job through a company, there might be an instance where you want to pull that submission and go with this other company. Something like $400 a week difference for a job. If that happens, if there is a big amount difference between what one recruiter offered you and the other recruiter offered you, I would say for that amount, I would probably pull the submission. Now, if you pull a submission, you are risking that company from blacklisting you. So this will come into a bigger concern if it's a larger agency. If it's a smaller agency and they don't have a lot of direct contracts, probably not that big of a risk. If it is a larger agency, they have a lot of direct contracts, they have a VMS, they do all these subcontracting to these smaller agencies, and you get blacklisted by that company, not only will that company not work with you directly, but that company might not allow your name to pass through their VMS either. And this is something that you won't necessarily know that is happening, but it is something to keep in mind that if you pull a submission, that company might choose not to work with you anymore. So take that into consideration. But if it is a very large amount difference that you submitted with company A, company B comes along, says, hey, I can give you $400 more, then you can either pull that submission from company A and go with company B, or go back to company A and always have the conversation, be like, hey, what's going on? Why is it such a big difference? And then if it's, that recruiter did withhold money from your pay package, you can either choose to go to a different recruiter, or you might not even want to work for that company anymore. Now, something that might happen while you are telling other recruiters, hey, I ended up submitting with this other job, this is what the offer was, a recruiter might say, oh, wow, they're lowballing. I can't believe they got you for that little. I could have easily given you $600 more a week. We see this, and when a recruiter says this, it doesn't really mean much. It's just verbal. They might just be trying to either, one, break your trust with that other recruiter, or to try to get you away from that job opportunity and take a job opportunity with them. Either way, if a recruiter says this, don't take their word for it. You'll want it in writing. If they put it in writing, then it's an official deal. And then you can take that to that other recruiter and be like, hey, why am I able to earn $600 more with this other company? And have it as an open conversation, because sometimes there are benefits, not for $600 a week, but there are benefits that certain companies might have that would make it, $100 to $200 a week, whatever it might be, that would be like, hey, actually, yeah, that's a pretty good benefit. I think I will stay with you. Thank you so much for explaining that to me. But $200 a week, but that benefit might have to be pretty darn good. But be careful of the bait and switch. We hear about it on the job boards, but it definitely happens over the phone as well. If a recruiter says, hey, I can get you $600 more a week, make sure they put it down in writing. If all of a sudden they're being super sly about it, they're not going to put it down in email, oh, I forgot, that's going to be some other kind of yellow flags, red flags, signs that maybe you shouldn't be trusting that recruiter moving forward. But that is the game of sleazeball and how to work with multiple companies at the same time, especially when job opportunities are coming at you at the same time. How to appropriately communicate with them that you have another offer, how to do it in a fair way, and how to do it in a way that you can see who you can actually trust moving forward. But that is this episode of the New Medical Nomads podcast. If you are looking for the next episode, the official launches happen on the Facebook page at newmedicalnomadspodcast.com or New Medical Nomads Podcast. You can check us out at newmedicalnomads.com. We also do the official launches there. We're on Spotify, we're on iTunes. If you subscribe on YouTube, you get the early access to all the episodes. So any likes, hearts, comments, smiley faces, any of that engagement helps more people to see this information. It helps us to help more people, more travelers, more nomads to kind of navigate this adventure. So that's the whole point of this podcast, is to help other people out. So I greatly appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for joining. Everybody have safe adventures. Everybody have safe travels.